Hello, you truly wonderful soul. Is there a deep longing within you to finally come home? Or is there life after death? Or maybe even, who is God? Or is there even a God at all? And it was precisely these questions that I sought answers to from a young age, and I even asked a pastor about them. But somehow, at that time, I didn't get a proper satisfactory answer. And so I continued searching my whole life in my journey until I eventually transformed from a seeker to a finder. And what exactly I discovered, I will go into detail here. It's a very exciting topic. Stay tuned. Yes, my name is Ralph Riedel. I have been following the shamanic path for 20 years, part of the Inca and Blackfoot traditions. In my childhood, when I was a child, I was taught that there is indeed a God, similar to the Heavenly Father, who looks down on us all from above with a big, long, white beard, and that in truth, indeed, at the moment, we are all sinners and currently have a debt just for being alive. And if we are lucky and all our sins are completely washed away, or can be mercifully lifted through Jesus Christ in this case, then we might be able to return to the heavenly kingdom, the eternal paradise. And there was always a great fear of not always being good enough, of not truly getting into heaven. And that really drove me to find deeper answers, really. And then naturally I also delved into various systems, starting with Christian mysticism, which is lived differently than what was taught to me in church. And after that, I also engaged with the teachings of Omram, Mikhail Ivanhoff, Yogananda, Babaji, and Carlos as well. And thus, a new world opened up for me, the world of meditation and the divine world associated with it. What was astonishing to me was that the doctrine of incarnation was always naturally a part of it, no matter which system I researched and engaged with. There were many overlaps, and I found that original Christian mysticism also included the concept of incarnation, unlike what I was taught in church. Years later, I also became acquainted with the shamanic worldview. And there, much of what the teachings of the masters also instruct was indeed confirmed, in fact, as expected. And the worldview, or more precisely the creation story, indeed tells us, for example, that the snake originally had legs, but out of love for Pachamama, it truly gave its legs back to the Great Spirit in order to walk even closer to the earth with its belly, actually. And the snake also truly symbolizes a positive aspect for me, to be even more in deep harmony with the earth. Contrary to what I was taught at the beginning, that the serpent is indeed the tempter, the evil one. Yes, and that was actually different in the shamanic creation story. But what was most important was that the Great Spirit also created humans in his own image, that he still lives on earth in paradise, and that everything needed for life is indeed given to him. And we still truly live in this paradise today, absolutely. And whether in the teachings of the masters or in the various South American tribes, the truth that is lived and taught there is the following: that we are in truth beings of light and are temporarily having this human experience. For our task is to remember who we truly are once again, and that together with the Great Spirit we indeed co-create the creation. Yes, and we should also celebrate life because we are loved just as we are. And that in truth there is indeed truly no fear except the one we create within ourselves. And we are here to remember how to find our way back home. Specifically, this means that through meditation and your daily work on your consciousness, you can repeatedly connect with the source of your own being. And in the process, I got to know various methods. This treasure that I have found, I now teach to other people. And that really fills me with a lot of joy, fulfillment, and happiness, that I have truly realized that the truth is universal and cannot be put into a box. And depending on the various different cultural backgrounds someone comes from, everyone naturally tries to describe this unique truth from their own individual perspective and viewpoints. Therefore, different words are naturally used to describe it in various ways. but they often describe the same thing that many others experience in other cultures. But here at this point, I feel and also notice how limited human language is in truly being able to describe it. The longer I walk this path, I have come to understand that most people don't really actively engage with it. They just develop theories in their heads and believe that these are the irrefutable truth. And I had the privilege over the years and through various journeys to gather many such experiences and countless encounters, truly and deeply immersing myself in this infinite and boundless state of divine and eternal love, omnipotence and majesty. And in that moment, I could genuinely and profoundly feel, with each and every single pore and every cell of my body, really indeed perceive what it means to dwell in this state. And I have come to understand without a doubt, of course, that it is a temporary gift in my life. And that alone indeed makes it truly worth walking this path, this shamanic path or the path to ultimate truth. Because of this, I have truly been able to feel that the illusion of death, or the belief that life ends when we lay down our bodies after death, is not true. That it is an illusion, because I could feel, because I could perceive, to immerse myself in this wonderful state, in this state of the soul, that we are in truth beings of light who are immortal, who have always been and will always be. Yes, and for me, that already feels like good news. That's how I would describe it. Because we are no longer at the mercy of the fear that we might not be allowed into heaven someday or something like that. Instead, I have discovered my own truth, or in a way expanded my own worldview, realizing that we are loved just as we are. And this is the life we are allowed to lead here. It is a gift to also refine ourselves on our path. I would like to quote a great Qigong master after a student of his said, "Master, Master, I am now enlightened." And then he exclaimed with relief, "Thank God, now we can finally at long last start working." Many believe that once you achieve this state of enlightenment, the search is over, I no longer have to work, and everything becomes easy. But in truth, the work really begins at that point. This means self-realization here in this life, continuing to refine one's ego consciousness, one's self-awareness. That is essentially our task. If you regularly work on your consciousness, you will eventually be able to reach the first level and take on the role of the observer. So when your thoughts and emotions become still and you can step back and observe yourself, you realize that you are more than just your ego or your self-awareness. Instead, you briefly immerse into an elevated state of consciousness that is connected with your higher self, allowing you to feel unity with the universe. And that is only possible if you truly learn to go into the silence and learn to listen deeply within yourself. Then you will more and more hear the language of your heart and your soul. Yes, and unfortunately, we have been taught, or I have been taught, to cut ourselves off from this language of the heart and to take on a role that is expected of us. We want to be loved, we want to be recognized, we want to be appreciated, and as a result, many carry a hole in their hearts. Speaking from personal experience, from a lack of love and from a feeling of not being good enough, a feeling of being small and insignificant. And to fill this pain and this void, we are constantly seeking validation and recognition, constantly from the outside. And then often a sense of being driven arises. This comes with a feeling of having lost oneself, needing to strive and having to be someone else. And all of this is closely connected with our self-awareness or our ego. That means these are the things we are allowed to transform or dissolve in our current incarnation. This is essentially what we have as our task here. What does it mean specifically that, from a shamanic perspective, we are at home on multiple levels simultaneously? We are sometimes at home in our higher self, then in our ego or self-consciousness. And then there is also the level of the subconscious, 2001. And our task now is to connect these three levels with each other. And in my shamanic online training, I talk about personality refinement. Quite simply, this means that we activate the contact with our higher self anew every day, and on the level of our ego consciousness, detach ourselves from everything that makes us feel small, restricts us, or gives us a bad feeling. And in doing so, we must also learn to give ourselves permission to be great, to liberate ourselves, to show ourselves completely real and authentic, without any restrictions, without having to play a role. In short, indeed, to realize ourselves. I would really just like to actually inquire, do you really have a deep and strong longing to finally come home? Ultimately, truly wanting to stop fighting and indeed finally deeply dwelling in inner peace? Or do you feel within yourself that you are destined for something greater than the life you are currently living? And that is exactly the call of your soul or the language of your heart, without being able to explain it precisely with your mind. And that is exactly what it's about now, listening to this call. I can describe from my own experience that it is a feeling of doing the right thing. You can't explain that from the head. It's a feeling that comes from the heart, that you just know you have to do it now, or you should stop that too. You have options not only to always do something, but also to stop something. And in doing so, we are naturally confronted with the voice of our mind, which has its justification, but often wants to show us the path of least resistance, suggesting that this is the logical way. And because we have learned to listen more to our mind than to our heart, it may be that you become increasingly more and more unhappy without being able to explain why this is happening. And more, increasingly. Because everyone first has to learn to understand the language of their heart again. And with that, I would really like to ask you the next question. If you indeed have the courage to truly and deeply feel into your heart and then genuinely give your heart, that feeling in your heart, the space it truly desires the most. So give it a try. You might need a little more time to find out when you ask yourself, who would you like to be without having to be someone? Take a moment to reflect on your true desires and aspirations. Consider the possibilities and the different paths you could take. Okay, who would you like to be in your life without having to be someone or pretend to be someone? Or what kind of life would you like to lead if you had no obligations, no dependencies, and you completely freed yourself and focused only on the call of your soul, giving yourself permission in this very moment to live that life and see what it does to you? This feeling is very important because we have also learned that we do not allow ourselves to experience it. We do not permit ourselves to dive into it. And the secret is, if you can feel it, if you can also feel it here in your heart, then it is possible to realize it. And when you delve deeper by understanding the deeper implications, it ultimately comes down to the consequence of the decision that you can also give yourself permission to free yourself from this old life and truly live the path of self-realization, learning to love yourself as you truly are, and the profound impact it can have on your life and the lives of those around you. That is the way ultimately. It's not a switch where you say, if I achieve this, then I will be loved then, and so on. No, on the path of self-realization, it happens simultaneously that you learn here to love yourself more and more with all your quirks and edges, just as you are right now, to accept yourself as you truly are, and then also to continually connect with your divine essence, with your soul core. Because in truth, you are indeed an immortal being of light that has always been there and always will be, truly. And from this heightened state of consciousness, it indeed becomes easier for you to overcome the challenges in life that appear on your path to self-realization, which is truly remarkable. Yes, and those were my thoughts on this topic. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to share it with others. And if you want more insights or a glimpse into my daily routines, just follow me on Instagram. The link is below in the description. See you next time. Until then, bye. Ciao.